Good evening, Trekkers and Trekkies. It's been a long time since I've had a good old fashioned rant, and now I think is the time, more than ever, for me to rant away about a couple of my favorite television programs. The latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the Salat who swallowed his tail, ate his tail, something like that. You know, it's there's a lot to it. There's a lot to unpack going on with some Strange New Worlds. I like it. I enjoy it. I think it has a very original series feel, and it's kind of loose and silly, which is what the original series was kind of all about, a little bit. So it's okay. There's precedence. I can accept it. Um, however, I was going with the proto Borg thing, and I still think there's some unexplained stuff going on there. However, the point being is, while I was trying to analyze the episode and looking through the blueprints and slowing down the frames to try to see things, somehow I managed to miss a TARDIS. I managed to miss the TARDIS, the police box, the blue police box. And I am ashamed myself. But, as I knew, a week later, someone would find all the little Easter eggs. I knew I didn't have to do it myself. So, that's fantastic. Now, what really brings up the point of this debate, this rant right now, is why is the Doctor on Star Trek now? Um, because basically I said it was gonna happen, and they were listening to me, and they're stealing my ideas. They stole my whole ideas for Picard season two. I know they're listening and they're checking the forums. I know, but that's probably not really true. However, because the Doctor is there in Star Trek. Now this is canon. This is canon now. This actually happened. That TARDIS was actually there. So why is the Doctor there? He is there to fix our favorite television programs that the companies are just running into the dirt. They are just buying up these properties like their real estate, and they're selling them like candy. And and no one really cares about the content. I don't think anyone really cares about the content. I think the actors are fantastic. I think the shows are great. I want to get into Doctor Who. What I really want to get into is Doctor Who. I want to get into a lot of it. There's a lot of things going down, in my opinion. All right. I I had no problem with Josie. I have no problem with Nchuti. With Nchuti, I didn't. I haven't watched the full episodes yet. Um, I did watch The Devil's Chord though with the Beatles, and I have a couple things to say about that. But let alone how they casted Paul McCartney. Anyway, uh, I think I could not imagine a world without the Doctor. I think that would make me really sad, and so the Doctor should continue. But should it really? Should the Doctor really continue? It's getting a little tired. It's been on for 60 plus years, so we have to consider that. Well, despite in the 90s there was like a 10 or 20 year gap where there was no Doctor Who minus a movie, which was my childhood. Um, I think what Chris Chibnall did with the Timeless Children was brave. I think that was nice. Okay. I've been watching Doctor Who since I was a young child. It was on PBS. I would watch it with my mother, and I knew about the Doctor before it re-aired. I grew up in those wilderness years, And Paul McGann was technically my doctor. That's what I got in 1996 when I was a kid. I got a Fox movie with Paul McGann in it, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Um, as a child, growing up with the Doctor, the question lingers: Doctor Who. I mean, it's the name of the series, Doctor Who. So to try to actually explore the Doctor's backstory a little bit and maybe dive into a little more lore isn't the worst. A lot of people are really against this. I understand it. They say, well, if you give away the secret of the Doctor, that's the whole show and there's no point to the show anymore, and I just don't think that's true. I just don't think that's true. Anyway, I think there was good stuff. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on, but I think that the companies in charge, like the BBC and Disney and CBS, I think they have no intentions of letting the writers or the actors or anyone really do what it was or what it represented. I think, like I said, Disney, I was just watching the Shuttle Pod earlier, and Tim Allen was on it, and you have all these Tim Allen movies, and it's like they were talking about Jungle to Jungle, and it's like they're all these Disney movies. And back when I was a child, again, it's like Disney kind of had movies like that. Now this isn't any dissimilar to the vein of like the Nutty Professor, you know, like those old Disney comedies, the talking car and whatnot. Like, okay, but like Disney was doing their own thing. Disney did animation. Disney had a lot of animation. I remember Fantasia. Like, but now Disney just buys properties. They buy your childhood memories like retail and they try to sell them back to you. And it's not quite the same. And it's not quite the same. So, I think I think that since the TARDIS was in the new episode of Strange New Worlds, that it is more likely than ever for a crossover to happen, and I do have a couple ideas about that. You know, the doctor is there to fix the timelines because the timelines are all messed up. They're all messed up, and it's not even anything to do with Strange New Worlds. The timelines have been messed up since Captain Kirk's been going back in time like forever. So there's a lot of timeline damage in Doctor Who or in Star Trek, and there's definitely a lot of time damage in Doctor Who. I think that's kind of where the episodes were going when when I was watching the last couple new episodes, like the whole flux, the flux thing. So there's some stuff, and then the flux gets into a little bit more lore. The planet time and whatnot. There's just lore. Okay, so to even get back to the point, like people say like retconning. It's like, oh, this retcon. They're just retconning things. It's like I don't think necessarily it's a retcon unless it's specifically stated. Like for example, I went back and I've been watching William Hartnell in the first Doctor, and in the episode the Daleks, the first episode with the Daleks, like the series the Daleks, because the Doctor Who wasn't always like it was. It used to be like these parts, kind of like Flux. If you watch Flux, like that whole kind of mini series, that's kind of how the episodes used to be, like 6 or 7 part episodes for one long serial. So in the Daleks, it was explained that the original Daleks were like this species or like this race, the Dolls. There was the Dolls and the Thals, and the Dolls, and they neutron bombed themselves. They had a nuclear war, and the Dolls mutated into like what would become the Daleks, and the Thals mutated into like humans, like so then in Genesis of the Daleks with Tom Baker, we are introduced to Davros and we're introduced to the Calids. So this is like a pretty big. This is a pretty big retcon, and this is like going all the way back to the original series. So it's a complaint about retconning in the series and stuff is like meticulous. It's like you're gonna pick and choose, but there's precedence. If you watch all the series and all the things, there's precedence, and now that Doctor Who is officially canon within the Star Trek timeline. And as we know, as I'm saying, so in Strange New Worlds, we are definitely in an alternate timeline. Everyone keeps talking about, like, oh, they're trying to make a new series to tie the Strange New Worlds into the original series. It's never gonna happen because it doesn't tie into the original series anyway. This is a totally altered Spock than the original Spock we have, and no matter how you write it to say, oh well, this is how he became that Spock, it's not. It is not that Spock. Okay, I'm gonna break it down like this. Picard and them went back in time to stop the Borg, and they helped Zephyr Cochrane and do all that. So then you have the Enterprise episode, and then there was the whole Temporal Cold War, which the Temporal Cold War ties into Discovery, and we know Discovery ties into Strange New Worlds. So there was a whole Temporal Cold War going on, let alone, but either way, in the Enterprise, they run into the Borg on Earth because of what Picard did, and we know that Zephyr Cochrane was talking all this crazy stuff about the guys from the future and the robot men. This was going on. So we are already in super altered timelines. We're in way altered timelines. There's no way this Kirk and this Uhura and this Scotty are going to be the ones that go into the original series. It's the prime timeline. That is the prime timeline, and we have diverged off of that. We are no longer on the prime timeline, so it's not going to tie in, no matter what. However, this is why the Doctor is here, because of all these divergent timelines. The prime timeline, the Kelvin timeline, this new timeline, the other timeline, all the timelines, and we know that this is what the Doctor does. He handles timelines. He's going to handle his own, and he's going to handle theirs, and he's going to save both of the series that we all love so much. And then he is going to die, because the Doctor needs to die. The Doctor needs to die, and they need to do something else. They need to do a series like the Daleks, where you just kind of follow the Daleks around while the Doctor's gone, and while at the same time you have a co-running series called the Time Lords, and you give a little bit of Time Lord lore, and you kind of have these shows going at the same time. You could do so much. You could do so much within the shows themselves, with all the lore and canon and background that they've given you. There's not enough technobabble. There's already not enough technobabble in any of it. And I will not have it. I will not sit here and represent an engineering shirt where they're in shows where there's not enough technobabble. So I know maybe some fans have feelings about that, but I love technobabble and I want more technobabble. And they could do so much. They could do so much. They could bring Geordi back, or not Geordi, Wesley Crusher, because he's a traveler, and the traveler is a lot like the Legopolans if we go back and look at it. And, they could do so much, and they don't. So I'm just going to leave you with those thoughts, and those are my thoughts about our shows and the Doctor and the Enterprise crew and what will happen. Let's go.